when you follow a story like Sister Wives for years, all the drama, the family stuff, it's it's easy to get kind of lost in the weeds, right? All the speculation online.
Definitely.
And you just want someone to like cut through it and tell you what's really going on, what the core insights are.
Exactly. And that's what we're trying to do today. We're diving into the relationship between Meri Brown and Robyn Brown, specifically how it's evolved.
Okay.
We're looking at some pretty recent comments from Meri and also an analysis from Without a Crystal Ball on YouTube that really breaks things down.
Right. And our goal here isn't, to pick sides or say who's right or wrong. It's more about unpacking these, well, contrasting stories about Meri and Robyn, exploring maybe why things happened the way they did and getting a clearer sense of their dynamic within that whole polygamous family setup.
Yeah, trying to understand the context. And our main source here is this transcript from Without a Crystal Ball, looking really closely at what Meri's been saying about Robyn lately.
Okay, so let's start with how things looked for years. I mean, a lot of viewers, myself included sometimes, felt like there was definite tension there between Meri and Robyn.
For sure. There were always theories flying around, weren't there?
Yeah.
About Robyn maybe manipulating situations, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. But now, Meri's saying something quite different.
It's striking, isn't it? According to this analysis, Meri's recently said that her biggest problems, the most serious friction she experienced in the family, it was actually with Robyn.
Not Christine, not Janelle.
Nope,
Robyn.
specifically Robyn. Which, really flips the script on what many people thought they were seeing all those years.
It really does. Because that clashes completely with what Robyn has apparently said.
Right. The analysis mentions Robyn claiming her relationship with Meri was, quote, good and solid.
Until Meri moved.
Until Meri moved away from Cody. Yeah. So you have these two totally different versions of the same relationship.
Wow. Okay. It just shows how hard it is to know what's really going on, especially with reality TV cameras involved.
Absolutely. And the Without a Crystal Ball analysis digs into their early days, too, pointing out some, big inconsistencies.
Between what we saw on the show and what's come out since.
Exactly. Remember the story we were always told on the show, that Meri was the one who basically introduced Cody and Robyn.
Yeah, that she was instrumental, really pushed for it almost.
But, and this is a big but, the YouTuber points out, Cody and Robyn themselves have admitted more recently that they actually knew each other before Meri got involved.
Way before. Like met independently.
That seems to be the case,
Yeah.
Which is a pretty significant detail, right? The analysis even floats the idea that Cody might have, kind of used Meri's involvement to make the relationship with Robyn happen within the family structure.
Okay, that's quite a different picture. And the analysis says Meri realized this.
Apparently, yeah. The YouTuber mentions Meri having this realization about the timeline quite recently, like during the last season, feeling like she was, lied to about the very beginnings of Robyn joining the family.
Which must have felt like a betrayal, I imagine, if the foundation wasn't what you thought.
You'd think so. And this leads straight into the idea of narrative control. Who was shaping the story we saw?
Right.
The YouTuber argues pretty strongly that Cody and Robyn were largely in charge of the narrative presented on the show.
Which would include things like the divorce. The analysis suggests the whole divorce was Meri's idea. Storyline might have been, manufactured for TV.
Potentially, yeah. It paints a picture of a carefully constructed reality, which, on one level isn't shocking for reality TV.
Sure.
But the analysis suggests it's even harder to get to the truth here because of a few things. The editing, obviously, but also potential pressures related to presenting polygamy in a certain light, what the YouTuber calls cult influences.
Like needing to keep up appearances.
Maybe. And also just contractual obligations, NDAs, things they legally couldn't talk about. So multiple layers potentially hiding the full picture.
It's like peeling an onion, isn't it?
Yeah.
So many layers. The analysis then shifts gears a bit to the structure itself, the financial and legal side of things in polygamy.
Yeah, and this is really crucial for understanding the power dynamics. The analysis highlights this inherent imbalance. The legal wife, she just has more financial security, more legal standing, usually.
Compared to the spiritual wives.
Exactly. So for all those years, Meri was the legal wife. She had that status, but also the burdens that came with it.
What kind of burdens?
Well, the YouTuber points out legally, her husband was committing adultery, fathering kids outside the legal marriage. Back then in Utah, that could have theoretically put her in legal jeopardy just for enabling it.
Wow, I never really thought about that angle.
Yeah, plus being tied to the main house, taxes, community property. It's complex. And that all shifted, of course, in 2015.
When Robyn became the legal wife.
Right. And the analysis stresses that this likely had major financial consequences for everyone else.
Okay, so shifting back to the personal stuff. The analysis talks about manipulation control. Pretty heavy allegations.
It does. It brings in Jen's perspective. She apparently described Cody seeing Robyn as the, quote, new shiny toy. Oof. And that the dynamic became like them against everybody else.
Which you hear about sometimes, right, in these situations. A new wife comes in, the dynamic totally changes.
Exactly. It echoes stories from other women who've left polygamy feeling replaced, marginalized when the husband focuses all his attention on the newest wife.
And Jen apparently described Robyn's behavior too.
Yeah, like being super friendly one minute, then kind of cold and hurtful the next. That inconsistency, suggesting maybe a pattern of, well, manipulation.
Okay.
And this ties into claims that Cody focused a lot of compliments on Robyn's appearance, allegedly making the other wives feel, less than.
That constant comparison game. That would be tough.
Definitely could take an emotional toll. The analysis even goes back to Meri's own book, Becoming Sister Wives.
What did Meri say back then?
She apparently described Robyn being really intense and friendly. At first, the analysis calls it love bombing, but then pulling back significantly once her courtship with Cody got serious.
Leading Meri to feel used.
Reportedly, yes. Feeling like the initial friendship wasn't maybe as genuine as it seemed once Robyn got what she wanted, which was Cody.
Okay, so putting all that together,
Yeah.
it leads back to the divorce.
Right. And the YouTuber is pretty blunt about it, believing Cody wanted that divorce from Meri specifically so Robyn could become the legal wife.
Not just a storyline, but a deliberate move.
That's the argument because, as we said, legal marriage means a lot financially, legally, with assets. The analysis even mentions Janelle apparently commenting back then that Cody and Robyn would just run off into the sunset together.
Implying it was always their plan.
That seems to be the suggestion the YouTuber is drawing from it. That it wasn't some random plot twist from Big Love, but Cody's intention.
Okay, then the analysis gets into scapegoating. The idea that Cody maybe turned people against Meri.
Yeah, that he allegedly used her as a scapegoat, maybe influenced the kids, the other wives, shifted blame onto her.
Is there anything specific mentioned?
There's this one anecdote. Apparently, some of the kids reportedly said they didn't really see Meri as bad or difficult until Robyn came along.
That's interesting. Suggests a shift in perception that coincided with Robyn's arrival.
Right. The YouTuber links it to what they call a smear campaign, something sometimes seen in narcissistic dynamics, where one person is systematically undermined.
Which then leads to accountability or maybe the lack of it.
Exactly. The analysis contrasts Meri, who seems, at least sometimes, willing to apologize and take some responsibility with Robyn, who apparently comes across as less willing to show remorse.
Right, like with Christine. The analysis mentioned Christine trying to reconcile.
Yeah, and reportedly getting called a bully by Robyn for her efforts, even though Christine herself has admitted she wasn't always fair to Meri in the past, especially about the kids.
So it's all very tangled. But the YouTuber's stance is clear.
Very clear. They state pretty firmly that, given everything else discussed, Meri owes Robyn no apologies.
Okay. The analysis also points to a change in Robyn after she became the legal wife in 2015.
Yeah, the assertion is that her focus shifted almost entirely to Cody then. Less interaction with the others.
And Meri noticed this long before she left.
Apparently so. The YouTuber mentions Meri complaining for years about not seeing Robyn, not getting texts back, long before the final split with Cody.
Which feeds into the next point, doesn't it? Finances and work.
The analysis points out Meri really carried a lot of weight on the show, especially when others, maybe Robyn included, weren't as keen to film certain things.
And they all got paid individually at the start, right?
Yeah, in the early days, separate salaries. The analysis even mentions that time they were really struggling financially in Wyoming. Like, all the wives, Meri included, were worried about food, so she wasn't living some separate privileged life back then. And it contrasts that with Janelle apparently saying later that Meri was fair with money, advocated for everyone, implying maybe that changed when Robyn gained more influence.
So the suggestion is financial exploitation.
The YouTuber uses that exact phrase, suggesting Robyn completely exploited Meri's financial input from the show.
Wow. Okay. So finally, where does this leave Meri now, according to the analysis?
Where?
Her perspective seems to be shifting.
That's the takeaway. The YouTuber sees it as really significant that Meri even hinted at the possibility of Robyn being a fraud, even though she immediately walked it back a bit.
Just the fact that the thought occurred to her. Or that she voiced it.
Exactly. It's seen as a sign she's maybe starting to reevaluate everything now that she's out of what the analysis calls Cody's narcissistic fog and the pressures of the cult programming, that pressure to always present a perfect united front.
So it's like she's processing it all differently now.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
So we end up with these really starkly different narratives, don't we? Meri pointing to major issues, primarily with Robyn. Robyn saying things were fine until Meri left.
And the analysis we've looked at suggests a whole backstory of potential manipulation, narrative control, financial dynamics, all tied up in the legal marriage situation.
It really underlines how tricky it is to get the real story, especially with reality TV filters and years of history.
Absolutely. It leaves you wondering, doesn't it? When you look at these power dynamics, these conflicting accounts, what does it really reveal about truth itself? Especially in families that don't fit the conventional mold.
Right. And how much does that legal structure, having one legal wife in a plural family, actually drive the personal stuff? The motivations, the resentments, the alliances.
Yeah. Definitely gives you a lot to think about regarding everyone's individual perspective and what might have really been driving them.